Hello and welcome to True North EV. I am your host James, and today we're tackling something every EV owner has experienced. Those wild misconceptions and myths we hear at the gas pump, family dinners, or just about anywhere people notice your car doesn't have tailpipe. You know what I'm talking about. Don't those batteries catch fire? Or my personal favorite, what happens if you run out of charge in the middle of nowhere? Today, we're going to burst some myths, share some laughs, and arm you with some friendly, factual comebacks when you inevitably hear these comments yourself. But first, I want to know what's the most ridiculous EV myth you've heard lately? Drop me a note at truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Facebook at truenorthev. I'd love to share your stories in a future episode. All right, let's get going. Let's start with some of the classic EV myths that seem to pop up everywhere. Myth number 1, EVs don't work in winter. This has to be the most common one I hear as a Canadian EV driver. Those batteries must die in minus 30 degrees Celsius winters. Let's set the record straight. Truth, cold weather does affect range, just like it affects gas vehicles. We might see a 20-30%, possibly as high as 50% reduction in range in extreme cold in older, more inefficient EVs, but they still work great with proper preparation. Modern EVs have sophisticated thermal management systems that protect and precondition the battery. Many EVs even have battery heaters, similar to the block heaters that every Canadian ICE driver is familiar with. The difference is you can activate them from your phone while still finishing your Tim Hortons. Now, we actually have a gentleman in the Manitoba EV who, this winter? When there was the minus 30, minus 40 degree Celsius weather up in Edmonton, he took his, a 2014 Tesla Model S, driving it into the headwind, and he was doing great. He drove from Winnipeg up to Edmonton with no issues. Yeah, it wasn't as efficient. Yeah, you had to charge it up more, but he was nice. He was comfortable. He was warm. There was no big issues with it. Let's move on to myth number 2. EVs take forever to charge. I don't have time for that. Truth, most charging actually happens at home overnight while you're sleeping. You wake up to a full tank every morning without ever visiting a station. For road trips, DC fast charging is increasingly available along major Canadian routes. Many newer EVs can add 300 kilometers of range in about 20-30 minutes. Just enough time for a bathroom break and to grab a coffee. I personally like to take a little more time and get some fresh air and, especially for longer road trips, help the kids burn off some energy so they don't go all squirrely in the back seat. When you add up all the time spent driving to gas stations, waiting in line, pumping gas, paying, plus all those oil changes and maintenance maintenance visits, EVs actually save you time in the long run. Myth number 3, the grid can't handle all these EVs. Truth, both national and provincial studies show our grid can handle the transition, especially since most charging happens off-peak when there's plenty of excess capacity. Smart charging and managed loads are becoming standard. My EV lets me set charging to start after midnight when electricity demand is lowest. Some utilities are even testing vehicle-to-grid technologies where EVs can give power back during peak times. Here's what makes Canada special. We already produce more than 80% of our electricity from non-emitting sources, from BC and Manitoba's hydropower to Quebec's massive hydro resources and Ontario's nuclear hydro mix. We're ideally positioned for clean EV charging compared to most countries. Myth number 4. EV batteries die in a few years and cost a fortune to replace. Truth. Modern EV batteries are designed to last the life of the vehicle, typically 18 to 20 or more years. Almost every EV comes with an 8-year, 160,000 kilometer battery warranty, some even longer. Manufacturers wouldn't offer these warranties if they expected widespread failures. There are plenty of older Tesla Model S's and Nissan Leafs vehicles on Canadian roads with 300 plus thousand kilometers still using their original batteries. There's actually a Quebec City taxi driver running a 2014 Tesla Model S with over 500,000 kilometers who still gets about 85% of his original range. Also, batteries can now be repaired instead of replacing a whole battery, which will reduce the cost if you do need battery maintenance, if you have a battery failure in an older EV. Myth number 5. EVs are worse for the environment because of battery mining. Truth. Even when accounting for battery production, studies consistently show EVs have a significantly lower lifetime carbon footprint than gas vehicles, especially in Canada with our clean electricity. People forget the environmental impact of extracting crude oil, shipping it, refining it, trucking it to stations, and then burning it for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. And when there's an oil spill, the cleanup, the mess that goes along with it. When there's an electricity spill, you just turn off the power and repair the lines. No major damage caused. The International Council on Clean Transportation found that EVs in Canada produce 60 to 80% fewer emissions over their lifetime compared to gas vehicles. The mining concerns are valid, but the industry is improving rapidly with more sustainable practices and new battery chemistries using more abundant materials. And unlike oil, battery materials can be recycled. Myth number 6. There aren't enough charging stations. Truth. The network is growing incredibly fast. Canada now has over 16,000 public charging stations from coast to coast. The federal government's zero-emission vehicle infrastructure program is adding thousands more stations. And major corridors like the Trans-Canada Highway are increasingly well served. Dealerships are also adding public charging, and it is constantly growing. You're able to now plug in basically anywhere. You also got to remember, any normal household plug, any welding plug, any campsite plug, those are all available for you to plug in with the proper adapter. Myth number 7. EVs are too expensive for the average person. Truth. The sticker price is higher up front, which they're actually becoming a little closer together, but the total cost of ownership often works out much lower due to massive savings on fuel and maintenance. There will hopefully be a return to the federal funding, but there is provinces stepping up like Manitoba with their $4,000 rebate with a qualifying new EV or a $2,500 rebate with a qualifying used EV. And the used EV market is also growing rapidly with many affordable options. Canada is too big for EVs. Yes, the vastness of Canada argument. It's true, we've got a big country. But let's be honest, how often are you actually driving from Toronto to Vancouver? Most Canadians live in urban and suburban areas and make relatively short daily trips. The average Canadian commute is about 23 kilometers each way, well within the range of any modern EV. And for those longer trips, rapid charging networks continue to expand along major highways. Also, let's be honest, if 95% of your driving is on full electricity, it's okay if you rent a gas vehicle for that 5%. You're still doing a major part in reducing our emissions. Myth number 9. EVs can't handle Canadian roads and weather. This might be my favorite. EVs actually excel in tough conditions. The instant torque means better performance in snow. The low center of gravity from floor-mounted batteries improves stability. And the precise motor control gives you better traction control than many gas vehicles. I've taken my EVs through prairie blizzards and the worst potholes Manitoba has to offer. These vehicles are tested in extreme conditions before they ever reach consumers. And here's a key and winter advantage most people don't think about. You can warm up your car in a closed garage without worrying about carbon monoxide poisoning. No more scraping ice in more minus 40-degree weather. Myth number 10. You can't use an EV for truly Canadian activities. I've actually heard people say, but you can't tow a boat, camper, hockey equipment with an EV. Well, the Ford F-150 can tow up to 10,000 pounds. The Silverado Sierra, I believe, is up to 15,000 pounds. The Rivian R1T conquered the Trans-Canada Highway along with many other EVs. The Rivian R1T has gone all the way up to Alaska, Northwest Territories, back in doing all sorts of weird trips. And remember, the most Canadian deal, you can stick the stinky hockey equipment in the front of the F-150 so that you and your passengers don't have to deal with the smell after an incredibly tough hockey game. From ice fishing to camping in Algonquin Park, Canadians are doing it all with EVs, and often with surprising advantages, like using your vehicle as a power source for tools or appliances when you're off-grid. Imagine running your ice auger, heater, or cooking equipment directly from your truck while out on the lake. Just remember, make sure the ice is thick enough to handle the vehicle. As we wrap up today's myth-busting session, I want to emphasize that the transition to EVs in Canada is still a journey. Not every EV is right for every Canadian driver yet, but the gap between perception and reality grows wider every year as technology improves and infrastructure expands. If you're an EV driver, I hope this episode gave you some ammunition for those gas pump conversations. If you're EV curious, I hope it addressed some of your concerns. Before we go, here's how you can connect with our community. You can check out Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association at manitobaev.ca or find them on Facebook at Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. You can follow us on Facebook at True North EV. You can email your stories or questions to truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, go check out Bodie on Kilowatt Podcast. He's a much smarter guy than me, way more knowledgeable, way better news than me. So definitely go check him out. And before we go, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It really helps other EV enthusiasts find our show. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, send us your suggestions. This show is for you. Thanks for listening to True North EV. I'm James, and we'll talk to you next time.